The sun was dipping below the horizon, painting my ranch in shades of amber, when I heard the screech of tires on the gravel road. I stepped out of the barn, wiping sweat from my brow, expecting maybe a lost delivery driver. Instead, a sleek black SUV roared up, and out stepped Karen, her fur coat catching the fading light like she was walking a red carpet, not trespassing on my land. Sunglasses perched on her nose, she surveyed my rolling fields with a sneer, as if the place was beneath her. "This is my son's now," she declared, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. I blinked, dumbfounded. My family's ranch, fought for through generations, mine by every legal right. And this woman I'd never met was claiming it for her kid? Karen didn't wait for a response. She pulled out her phone, dialed 911, and started barking orders. "There's a squatter on my property," she said, glaring at me. "He's refusing to leave." I stood there, my boots rooted to the dirt, holding the deed to the ranch my great-grandfather built. The operator's voice crackled through the phone, asking for details, but Karen just snapped, "Hurry up. My son deserves this land." I tried to explain me name's Tom. I've lived here my whole life, paid every tax, every bill, but she waved me off like I was a fly. Then, to my horror, she grabbed a can of spray paint from her car and started defacing my fence, scrawling mine in garish red letters. The wood groaned under her reckless strokes, splinters flying as she hacked at it with a tire iron for good measure. My blood boiled. This wasn't just my home. It was my legacy. I took a deep breath, tried to stay calm. "Ma'am, you've got no claim here," I said, holding up the deed. "This is my land, clear as day." Karen laughed, a cold, brittle sound, and tossed her hair. "Your land? Please. My son, Ethan, is destined for greatness. He's going to build a resort here, something classy. Not this pigsty." She gestured at my modest barn, the hay bales, the cattle grazing peacefully in the distance. I was stunned. A resort? This was my life, not some developer's daydream. I asked her to show me any proof, a contract, a title, anything. She just smirked and said, "My lawyer's handling it. You'll be gone soon." That's when the twist came. A beat-up pickup truck rumbled up the road, and out stepped Old Man Jenkins, the town's retired surveyor, who'd mapped every inch of this county since the 70s. He'd been driving by, saw the commotion, and decided to intervene. "Tom, you okay?" he called, his weathered face creased with concern. Before I could answer, Karen whirled on him. "Mind your business, old man," she spat. But Jenkins wasn't fazed. He pulled out a tattered map from his glove box, one he'd drawn decades ago, and pointed to the clear boundary lines. "This here's Tom's ranch, ma'am. I surveyed it myself. You got no claim." Karen's face twisted, but she doubled down, insisting her lawyer had new documents that trumped everything. Jenkins just shook his head, muttering about city folks and their nonsense. The police arrived minutes later, 2 officers stepping out of their cruiser, looking weary. Karen launched into her story, painting me as a stubborn squatter, her voice dripping with entitlement. "My son needs this land," she insisted, as if that justified everything. The officers listened, then turned to me. I handed over the deed, my tax records, every scrap of proof I had. Jenkins chimed in, explaining the land's history, his voice steady as oak. The officers nodded, clearly unimpressed with Karen's theatrics. They asked for her evidence. She fumbled, producing nothing but a vague email from her lawyer that mentioned a pending deal. The lead officer, a no-nonsense woman named Officer Daniels, raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, this isn't a claim. It's a fantasy." Karen's composure cracked. She started yelling, accusing the officers of bias, of ruining her son's future. That's when her son, Ethan, appeared. He'd been sitting in the SUV, silent until now, a lanky teenager with a nervous expression. "Mom, stop," he said, his voice barely audible. Karen froze, turning to him with wide eyes. "Ethan, honey, I'm doing this for you," she said, but he shook his head. "I never asked for this," he muttered, stepping forward. In a quiet, devastating confession, he told the officers his mother had been obsessed with this resort idea, fueled by some shady developer who'd promised her a cut if she could secure the land. There was no deal, No claim, just her greed and a scam she'd fallen for. The truth hung in the air like dust after a stampede. The confrontation peaked as Karen's world unraveled. Officer Daniel stepped forward, her voice firm. "Ma'am, you vandalized private property and filed a false report. That's serious." Karen's smugness vanished. She stammered, pointing at me, at Ethan, at Jenkins, as if we'd all conspired against her. But the evidence was undeniable: me deed, Jenkins' map, Ethan's admission. The officers cuffed her as she shrieked about lawsuits and her rights. Ethan looked mortified, apologizing to me under his breath. I felt a pang of sympathy for the kid, caught in his mother's mess. Karen's destruction, me splintered fence. The red paint staining my land stood as a testament to her arrogance. She thought she could bully her way into my life, but she'd miscalculated. As they led Karen to the cruiser, her fur coat snagging on the jagged fence she'd ruined, she was a shadow of the haughty woman who'd arrived. Her sunglasses had fallen off, revealing eyes wide with panic. Ethan stayed behind, offering to help clean up the damage. I nodded, grateful but exhausted. Jenkins clapped me on the shoulder, his old eyes twinkling. "Some folks think they can rewrite history with a loud voice," he said. "But the land remembers." We spent the evening fixing the fence, Ethan working quietly beside me, the weight of his mother's actions heavy on him. I didn't press him for answers. He was just a kid, not the villain here. By nightfall, the ranch was quiet again, the stars bright above the fields my family had tended for a century. I stood on the porch, breathing in the familiar scent of hay and earth, feeling the weight of the day lift. Karen's outburst had been a storm, but it passed, leaving my home untouched in its soul. Her downfall wasn't just the cuffs or the humiliation, it was the truth, laid bare by her own son and an old surveyor who knew the land better than any lawyer. I'd fought for what was mine, not with shouts or paint cans, but with the quiet strength of right. This story isn't just about one woman's greed or one man's stand. It's about what happens when entitlement crashes into reality, when someone thinks they can take what's not theirs and learns the hard way they can't. I wonder what you think. Who's right, who's wrong? Was Karen a villain, or just misguided? Should Ethan have spoken up sooner? Share your thoughts, because stories like this don't end with one person, they live on in what we make of them.